IPMNation.com.
There we go. 6 o'clock. Time to get going.
All Natural Being. Warning, All Natural Being with Brian Brawdy is designed to shake your sense of self to the core.
It's full context psychology with an empowering twist, a philosophical loofah for your soul.
For those of you not ready or comfortable releasing your inner superhuman, listener discretion is advised.
Here's your host,
Brian Brawdy.
Welcome to All Natural Being. I'm Brian Brawdy. Hope you had a fantastic weekend. If you're a dad, belated Happy Father's Day. And I should mention, before we get into the top 10 cities here on IPM Nation, I should mention that Cleveland makes it in. Congratulations to the folks listening from Cleveland. Your big win in the NBA if you follow basketball. And I'm told, which is just a great story to start today off with, even if you don't follow basketball, even if you're not into that kind of thing, the Cavaliers were down 3-1, and if I remember reading correctly, never before in the history of that championship has a team come back down that many games. As they come down, they had to win 3 in a row. All the Warriors had to do was win one of those games. So it's a great story when it comes to never, ever, ever count yourself out. I think I'm not much of a basketball fan, but the California team had the NBA. Curry, I believe is his name. That had the number one player, the most valuable player of the league, or however that works. Even so, Cleveland Cavaliers did something no team had ever done before, come back from such a deficit. So what does that say to you and me? Never before had a team pull that off. So what are those things in your life that you think, it's never been done before, but that you and I could do? It's a great story I want to talk about here a little bit later. All right, welcome to All Natural Being here on IPMNation.com, as you know. Independent, provocative, mobile, just like your mind should be. And I like starting off each week to thank the cities that have helped make us the number one show here on IPM Nation, going on a couple months or more now. Want to thank the good folks in Manchester, New Hampshire, Boston, Massachusetts, Chicago, Illinois, not far from where I am right now, Rochester, New Hampshire, New York City, New York. So Dover, New Hampshire, Oshkosh, Wisconsin. Talk about a place close, not as close as Chicago, but kind of close to where I am, just north of me. Toronto, Ontario, Atlanta, Georgia, and of course, Cleveland, Ohio. Congratulations again. We start most every show with I like to share why it is that I get up Monday through Friday, right? We're here live, 6 to 7 Central, but 7 to 8 Eastern time. We have a replay at 11 a.m., and then also a replay at 8 p.m. for those folks that would rather listen towards the end of the day, or maybe your schedule just kind of, is such that this isn't an opportune time to hang out live in the mornings. But whenever you're hearing All Natural Being, whenever you're hearing this show, or maybe you're listening to it on iTunes, whenever you're hearing this show, you should know that I'm here because I'm a huge fan of yours. I'm on your side even when you're not. Even in those moments where you've forgotten who you ultimately are, who you truly are. And there's a saying left over from my early days in martial arts that says, let your spirit be your shield. So what I like about All Natural Being is it's my attempt to remind you, one, of your spirit, and two, that your spirit can be your shield. And that your all-natural being is that part of you outside of the storm, outside of the fray, outside of the chaos. No matter what shape or form it comes in, your all-natural being is your shield. And we also talk about the ego shield. We talk about the ability to build a little bit of a buffer between you and some of the craziness that can be the human ego. Which leads me, let's jump right into our segments we're going to be today. Segment number 1, and as you know, always comes with a bit of a disclaimer. I really do work hard on trying to get through all 4 segments when we say in the beginning, this is what a show's going to be like. I like to get through it, but as you know, these things are written fresh, baked fresh daily. So sometimes I just kind of go with the flow whenever it hits me. So my goal, so you should know, is to get through these 4 segments this morning to kick off the week here on All Natural Being. Segment number 1, it's all about an inappropriate relationship you may have going on in your life. Inappropriate relationship. Segment number 2, one of my favorites, and I'm entitling this one, It's Okay to Be an Idiot. And I bring a lot of scientific support to back up my point. We'll be doing that in segment number 2. Segment number 3, hopefully at the bottom of the hour. The ego is scared to death that you will one day learn to decipher the moment. Doesn't want you grounded in the reality of your all-natural being, and we're going to get to that in segment 3. Segment 4, what is your all-natural being's power? There's a quote from Plato that I love. It says, asking him, what do you think is this thing about being? And he said, my notion would be that anything which possesses any sort of power to affect another or to be affected by another, right? So that you have an action that someone will register in someone, or that you're here so that someone else's action will register in you. He says that if only for a single moment, however trifling, however small the cause, however slight the effect, if it has real existence, if you're there to receive it, you're there to give and take, I guess you could say. In Plato's thought, he says that's the definition of being. The definition, quote, of being is simply power. So when it comes to wondering about your all-natural being, it is that power to make an impact in your environment. Also, according to Plato, to have that environment make an impact on you. What can we do? So we're going to be talking about that this morning in the 4th segment. All right, let's get to the inappropriate relationship. Inappropriate relationship, and I'm sure that when I said that, people's minds start to race, what kind of inappropriate relationship? I don't know if you're familiar with Ram Dass, written a bunch of books. One of my favorites, Be Here Now. I know was on the top 10 list of things that the guy from Apple, Steve Jobs, said was one of the most influential books of his life. But Be Here Now by Ram Dass. And if you've ever read the book, you'll notice that there's some writing about how he got in the position he was. But then a lot of the pages are posters, artwork that he drew and different things that he put in. And one of my favorite quotes of all time, any author, any genre, he says, the mind is a great servant, but a terrible master. So, mind is a great employee, but not a fantastic boss. Mind is a great soldier, but not at all a fantastic general, not a fantastic commander-in-chief. So I think when it comes to, as we said for this morning's anaerobic aphorism, if you haven't read it yet, the root of all emotional pain grows out of an inappropriate relationship with one's own mind. So if you have a relationship with your mind, where your mind is the general, the master, the boss, you and I are in trouble. If we have an appropriate relationship where our mind is a tool, it's the employee, it's the servant, it's the soldier, if you will, if you like the military bent of it. The appropriate relationship is when your mind works for you. You're in charge. The inappropriate relationship is when that role is reversed. The mind is a great servant, but a terrible master, according to Ram Dass. Now, do you ever go over to someone's house? You ever go over to a friend's house and they have a dog or more? And the moment you get there, get in the front door, you ring the bell, you can hear the dog barking, jumping around. You can see him slashing away at the window on the inside. The moment they open the door, you come in, and the dog jumps right up on you, puts your paws right up on you. And the owner's like, oh, Rover, down. And the owner acts like surprised that the dog jumped up on you in the first place, but that's kind of... no one really focuses on that long because you look down and he's drooled all over your he's drooled all over your feet. So then the owner goes, oh, he's just excited. She's just excited to see you. So the dog's just super hyped up, running around, bumping into you, dog. And I'm a dog owner, as you may know. Dog hair all over you, slobber everywhere, dog spit, whatever you want to call it, everywhere. And the dog is just relentless. It just keeps coming at you, keeps brushing up against you. So you make it out of the front doorway, out of the foyer there, whatever it is, and you start back towards the, wherever you're going to be hanging out with your friend. And they go, oh, would you like a snack? Or maybe like a cracker? Sure, why not? I'll take a cracker. That sounds good. Oh, I made cookies. Oh, even better. I love cookies. So you go over, your friend offers you a cookie. You go, oh, these look great. And, you don't hold the cookie above your head. You got it where you would normally hold it. Maybe like your arm's bent. You're holding the cookie about waist high as you look at it, maybe a little taller than that. You look at the cookie, you go, oh, this smells so good. The smell just fills up the whole house. And before you know it, the dog has jumped and taken the cookie right out of your fingers. So now you got dog spit on your hands. You got dog spit on your shoes. You got hair all over the place. Dog jumping up, and you're out of cookie. So you try to be polite. You look up at the owner and go, whoa, well, she's a fan of the cookies, I can see. That's great. Here, let me wipe you off your hand. Let me get you another cookie. So you think, well, if I get a cookie this time, I'm holding it over my head. I'm going to sit somewhere else. I'm going to keep out of this crazy canine, out of his clutch, out of his reach. Now, when we first got our dog, Brash, we sent him and went with him to a puppy training center. And, we did a lot of research because in traveling the country, we needed to have Brash trained, what's called voice command, so that if we're out in the middle of nowhere, when we first got Brash, we were traveling the country with 49 states in a Lance camper. But there were times where we'd wake up and a mountain lion had circled the camper overnight. Or you're out somewhere and, you're always seeing a moose, you're seeing a bear, a black bear, a grizzly bear, whatever it is. And we needed to make sure that Brash would be on voice command so that when you call him, he would come. Because I wouldn't want him, I've seen it all over, but most notably the one that popped to mind in Colorado, where a lone coyote or a coyote pup will come out, see a dog, act all playful, jumping around. Oh, come on, we're long-lost cousins. Let's go, let's play. And the lone coyote kind of pulls the dog a little further out away from the backyard, the front porch, whatever it is, and all of a sudden, like 3 or 4 other coyotes that have been hanging out in the wings come in. Now it's not so much playful. And the coyotes will snag the dog, take him right out from underneath you. I've seen the effects of a mountain lion jumping over a huge fence, grabbing a German Shepherd, jumping back over the fence. No dog. Rover's gone. So when we knew we were going to be traveling and doing a lot of exploring, we wanted to make sure that Brash was under voice command. We knew it could save his life. We knew we'd get to take him more places, right? Because if you can take him and he's not just jumping around and you're yanking on the collar, which I'm not a fan of, you're doing all these other things, then it limits the number of places that you can take him. But he's under voice control. Brash is great. You can take him anywhere. You can take him into a store and he'll stand right by you. So we knew we'd get to take him more places. We knew we'd have a stronger bond, because who'd want to be like constantly yelling at their dog to come, sit, roll over if that's what you're into. I don't think Brash knows how to roll over. We never went through that part of the training. So we wanted that stronger bond. So we knew we could protect him. We could take him more places. We wanted to have some fun. And it also helped us. It helped both of us. Brash understand to the degree that dogs can. Brash understand what we expected. And then it also helped us kind of understand what Brash expected, right? He wants to be loved. He wants to be played with. He wants to be put through his natural dog paces. So then when you go over to these houses and people have these dogs, especially when you go over with little ones now and the dogs just pile right over them to get at whatever they're eating or whatever they're doing. And then the owners look at you and go, oh, well, Brash is just so well trained. Well, yeah, we have an appropriate relationship with Brash. We have an appropriate relationship. We've worked with him. We've wanted to make sure that he was going to be okay. I read somewhere early on before we had started thinking about our training that the number one thing you can guarantee to make sure, and I think the term was called the dog or the puppy is home forever, or maybe the puppy's forever home. Number one thing you could do, train him not to go to the bathroom in the house, right? Train him not to eat your shoes. Train him not to bite you or little ones in the family. So it really is a benefit, long-term benefit to both the mom and dad and the puppy to make sure that everyone's firing on the right cylinders. You have an appropriate relationship with your dog. If not, the dog runs crazed. The dog becomes the master, and you become the servant. It's the same with the mind. When we have an appropriate relationship with our mind isn't running crazy. It's running with all the binge thinking. When we have an appropriate relationship with our mind, all the emotional pain.
Oh, what if this happens? What if that happens? What if he doesn't like me? What if she doesn't? What if he doesn't like me? What if she doesn't like me?
All of it. Binge thinking. Inappropriate relationship with our minds, which is why we have the ego shield. We have that little bit of a buffer. We have the ability to say, okay, great. Here's the crazed puppy brain. But we also want to have a relationship where we have enough of an ego shield going, oh, that's just the mind. But then we train ourselves. We put ourselves through puppy training so that we know just because a thought pops into our head doesn't mean that it's the truth automatically. Doesn't mean it's something we have to react to. We can be aware of it, which is why I say all the time we don't have to embrace it. We can engage it. We don't have to embrace it. So when I wrote the anaerobic aphorism for today, the root of emotional pain grows out of an inappropriate relationship with one's own mind. We're in pain because of the binge thinking. We're in pain because we haven't trained our minds to go, oh, there's just another, that's just a puppy being a puppy. We'll let our mind come up, snag our cookie, drool all over our feet. Or we train our mind with the best acronym in a situation, not knowing what's going to go down next. Breathe in. Exhale. Scan the horizon. Check your six. Figure out what your senses are sending to you. And then you think, you talk, you take action. Whatever it is. But that's how we can begin at any stage. We say all the time, every chance is a second chance to bring out who you ultimately are, to go back in and get your great out into the light of day, to identify your true identity. No more identity crisis. Your true identity, your all-natural being. Not the character assassination that we fall for. People go, oh, I'll never amount to this, or I'll never be able to pull off that, or I'll never be able to do any of those kind of things. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about your all-natural being. Your appropriate relationship with your soul. Not the crazed monkey mind, the crazed puppy mind. An appropriate relationship with our own minds. And when we have that appropriate relationship, that's the beginning of making sure that we severely limit the amount of emotional pain we're subject to. We're not pincushions. We're not half a piece of Velcro looking for the other piece to be to get stuck to us. Hook and loop, whatever it's called. I did a little bit of research. They said that dogs that aren't trained, puppies that aren't trained, it's just tough on them. That sense of agitation that they experience, it shortens their lives. And believe me, there were people that weren't a fan of dog training when we said that this is what we're going to do. Oh, why don't you just let them be how they are? Great. How about I let them be how they are? They can come over and eat all the shoes in your closet. They can come over and take a dump in your living room. How would that be? You want to channel my dog's all-natural dogness? Great. How about you come over and babysit for a while? Better yet, how about I drop them at your place? So the people aren't going to be a fan of that. But those are the same people that are worried about what Kim Kardashian's doing. Those are the same people that buy into binge thinking, that allow the external, not the innate, not their inner core, but the external, to constantly be instigating them, to tweaking them, poking them in the chest, peddling some form of panic du jour that we should get sidetracked on, that we should get derailed by. The root of emotional pain grows out of an inappropriate relationship with one's own mind. And that's why I think Ram Dass nailed it. The mind is a great servant, but a terrible master. Next time you're in a situation where your puppy mind wants to go, your untrained puppy mind, remember the best acronym. 20 seconds. The best acronym to be your best. All right, we're going to run to a quick break. We'll be right back.
IPMNation.com.
All right, so here we are. And of course, as always, I get so excited. I get into it. I should have mentioned 331-684-7685. 331-684-SOUL, S-O-U-L, if you want to send me a text. I guess I'm supposed to say that depending upon your carrier, some type of standard texting thing may apply. So the heck with that. Don't do that. Just go over to Facebook. Facebook.com/Brian Brawdy official. OFFICIAL. I'll get a note over there. Of course, at Twitter, at Brian Brawdy. You can hook up with me there as well. Let me know. A lot of the things we talk about in All Natural Being come from emails that I get, texts that I get, suggestions that I get. And most notably, our next segment absolutely fits into that category. So here's what I want to do with this one. You've heard me say before. Oh, and did I mention allnaturalbeing.com? Head on over, leave me an email. I'll fire you an email back. We can hook up that way as well. Allnaturalbeing.com. You've heard me say before, you can't spell Brian without the I in idiot. And people say all the time, why are you so hard on yourself? How is telling the truth being hard on myself? Most things you'd be like, oh, I mean, how many days are we doing this? You figure we still haven't figured out how to time the open perfectly, so it's just nice and smooth, right? Keep working, bozo, trying to figure it out. Still haven't pulled it off. So when I say you can't spell Brian without the I in idiot, it's very liberating. People say, why do you get down on yourself? I'm not getting down on myself. I free myself from all kinds of stress by going, I'm a dope. What do you want? The scientist John Archibald Wheeler had a great way of putting it. He says, we live on an island surrounded by a sea of ignorance. As our island of knowledge grows, so does the shoreline of that ignorance. Think about it. Small island, not a lot of shoreline, big ocean of ignorance. as the island of knowledge grows, more shoreline, more ignorance. Or Frank Lloyd Wright. Remember the inventor? I'm sorry, the inventor of, but the architect, the house builder, artist. An expert is a man or a woman. I bet he would say if he was asked today. But an expert is a man or a woman who has stopped thinking because, quote, they know. They know. You got to have some people like this in your life. Can't tell them anything. They know it all. Wah, wah, wah. They know it all. So in honor of the two quotes that I really dig, John Archibald Wheeler and Frank Lloyd Wright, who help me every day remember what a dope I can be and how truly liberating it is when you can laugh at yourself. I'm not saying, be mean, be cruel to yourself, but just go, yeah, you know what? I might be good at one or two little things, but for the most part, nope, I'm a dope. So in honor of these and these great quotes, and really a tool that you can use, the privacy of your own home, don't go out and have, T-shirts printed up if you don't want. But I thought in honor of these two, and their great quotes, I would pull up thesaurus, and you and I could go over together some of the other words. If idiot is a bit strong for you and you don't want to use that, I thought maybe we could run down a quick list of words. I love this one. Mouth breather. Oh, I have a hair lip. Of course, I breathe through my mouth, but that's another show. Scissor bill. I don't get that, but I don't want to get off track here. All right, so let's say that you don't like you can't spell Brian without an I, an idiot. You're thinking, well, Brian, my name doesn't have any of those letters. I'd like to come up with one. So here's like my public service announcement. Some words you may opt to use. Now, I'm not calling you these words. I'm calling myself these words. Although, please, keep the hate mail coming. I'm not suggesting that you are those things. I'm simply suggesting these are some pretty cool words that if you have a 20-minute victory, you could just kind of highlight all the ways. The smarter you get, the greater the shoreline of ignorance grows. These might be some things where you could go, yeah, let me see if I have a letter in my name that could match up to that. Like if you happen to be listening and your name is Doug, you say, well, you can't spell Doug without the D in dunce. I like that. I remember one time in, I think, first grade, they made me sit in the corner of the room on a chair and wearing a dunce cap. I love half-wit. Not as much, though, I have to say, not as much as I love dimwit. Dimwit is a good one. You can't spell David without the D in dimwit. Dolt is okay, but it's not as good as dimwit. Dolt, I guess, is good. Cretin. I love the word cretin. That's a good one. If you're listening and your name is Kathy and you spell it with a C, you say, you can't spell Kathy without the C in cretin. It's a slightly different definition, but I still like that word, cretin. All right, let's look at some more. Simpleton. Yeah, that's a good one. I like it. Dope. I love that one. Nincompoop. My mom used to call me that. Nincompoop. Can't spell Nick without the N in nincompoop. That works. Of course, again, dimwit. I love that one. Dork, but that's more just comical, right? Loon. What are you, a loon? Which, to me, always leads in, yes, I am a lunatic. Have you read the bio? Of course I'm a lunatic. So we got dork, we got loon. Bonehead, right? You ever have a boneheaded move? If your name is Bob or Barb. Can't spell Bob without the B in bonehead. That's a good one. Numbskull. That's a good one. Numbskull. Doofus. The doofus doesn't grab me. I don't know about doofus. I don't like doofus. Ditz isn't bad if you're going to use a D. Can't spell Dawn. Can't spell David without the D in ditz. Oh, here's another one. Lummox. You got to love that word. Come on. Lummox means a big oaf, but it's still a cool word. Dipstick. That's one I like to use on myself a lot. What a dipstick. That's usually when I've done something just, well, meat-headed. Bill O'Reilly made Pinhead famous, so I'm not going to use that one. Pea-brain, that's a good one. Bird brain. You could say bird brain, but there's all kinds of reports out over the last month that said birds have got it going on when it comes with the number of neurons and the way those neurons wire themselves. So bird brain might really be more of a compliment. Mouth breather. I go back to that one. Again, yeah. What am I going to do? My nose doesn't work in that regard. Donkey. Donkey's a good one. Yeah, but then donkey's okay. Nerd. Slightly different meaning. Not as good as nitwit. What a nitwit. Which goes right with twit. Boob. Bozo. What a clown. I use that one ever so often. Chowderhead. I've never really gotten that one. I've never really got that one. But for those of you, and we're trying to keep our clean rating on iTunes, trying to keep our clean rating with you. So if anyone's listening and there's little kids around, let me give you a countdown, a 5-second countdown to one of my favorite ones, which I use to refer to myself all the time. Can't spell Brian without the. Stand by. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Can't spell Brian without the A in asshat. I like that. So here's what we're going to do with this. Bottom line, the greatest geniuses of all times have realized they were dolts. Right? They were clowns. Dingbats. Can't listen to dingbat without thinking of All in the Family. Is that it? Archie Bunker? Wasn't that what he called Edith? Some of the sharpest minds, some of the greatest geniuses ever have been dipsticks. We live on an island surrounded by a sea of ignorance. And as we get smarter, as our island grows, so does the shoreline of our ignorance. And Wheeler was a pretty sharp guy. And you can't argue with Frank Lloyd Wright. An expert is a man or a woman who has stopped thinking because, quote, they know. So even, just for a 20-minute victory today, have some fun with yourself. Pull up a thesaurus and look up the word idiot and have some fun. Because if we're honest, we're not piling on ourselves. We're not self-deprecating. We're not slamming ourselves. We're not jumping onto the bandwagon of all of our critics. We're just saying, given all of the knowledge in the universe, all of the knowledge of stuff even our sharpest minds have never figured out, on the grand scheme of things, do we know 2% of all the, quote, truth in the universe? No. So it's okay to let yourself up. And here's the reason that I'm laughing. Because it truly is life-affirming. Everyone goes, oh, no, now you're just being cruel, suggesting people call themselves a doofus. No, if I said numbnuts, that might, no. Right? It's life-affirming to go, yeah, I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer. That's okay. I know what I know. I know what I do. I know that I'm open. I'm open to learn new things. My mind is a voracious sponge, which is true, not a commentary on intelligence. It's a commentary on how your brain is wired for all your senses. Your brain is a huge sponge, sucking in whatever it can, consciously and subconsciously. So you want to have a little fun, and you really want to be able to be done with a 20-minute victory and go, yeah, I really, and let me say this. If at the end of this 20-minute victory, if you make it a 20-minute victory and it hasn't made you laugh at yourself, it hasn't made you smile, you need this more than anybody else. So go back into it again. Go back into it again. Pull up a thesaurus and go, yeah, you know what? Maybe he wasn't as boneheaded as he sounded. Right? Maybe he wasn't as lame-brained as he sounded. Pull up the thesaurus. Find that letter in your name And from time to time, whisper it to yourself. You don't have to print it on your business cards. You don't have to take up billboards or, buy one of those airplanes that drag the streamer behind it with the big advertising. You don't have to do that. Just next time you look in the mirror, you make a mistake, go, what a dope. And I promise you're going to smile, and it will be as life-affirming as anything, truly any one-liner that you can come up with. We'll be right back.
You're listening to All Natural Being with Brian Brawdy. How much longer will you let them hijack your head and your heart?
How much longer are you going to let them hijack your head and your heart? And you're going to put you on that list. If you buy into the bandwagon, if you buy into the opinion of those around you, your critics, even for that matter, if you buy into the opinions of the people applauding you, right? It goes both ways. But you and I both know it is a philosophical mistake. It's a physical mistake to let the opinion of the crowd direct you when it comes to your all-natural being. Segment 3. The ego is scared to death. Dun, dun, dun. That you and I are going to decipher the moment. We're going to figure this out. The poet Saul Bellow, I love reading his work, believed that there was another reality, the genuine one, which we lose sight of. This other reality, he would say, is always sending us hints. There is another reality, the genuine one, which we lose sight of. That's our all-natural being. I think he was on to us. This other reality is always sending us hints. That's the fingerprints of providence in the labyrinth. But if we blend this in with Frank Lloyd Wright's quote, he stopped thinking because he knows. Well, if we go into the moment knowing, if we go into the moment with a preconceived notion, how open are we really? How open are we to learning something we didn't know 15 seconds before? Oscar Wilde called it the temperament of receptivity. Are we receptive? Or is our minds so riddled with binge thinking and blind spots that we come into a new moment with all what Saul Bellow called all those hints? We come into a new moment full of hints, cornucopia of hints, but we're too busy knowing it all. So we have the fingerprints of providence. We have what goes down in the labyrinth, but you and I are too busy to collect the evidence. We don't have a temperament of receptivity. Now, kind of the paraphrase the opposite of Oscar Wilde's quote, we have a temperament of reactivity. Something comes into the moment, we have to react to it because it's contrary to what we believe, contrary to what we think, contrary to what we feel. Now, this isn't a suggestion that you be wishy-washy. Isn't a suggestion that we be, puncturable in any way. We're not going to be pincushions. Keep your pins to yourself. All we're suggesting is that receptivity, having that little bit of a buffer, an ego shield, allows you to go, hey, wait a minute. Is this something I can use? News you can use? Or news you should lose? And you decide in that moment. But if we go in with all these preconceived notions, we're packed. We're packed. Packed. Ever go on, well, you look at sometimes you're standing in line at the airport and someone comes in with a bag. What do you get, 50 pounds? I think it is now. They come in, it's like 85, and they go,
Oh, I don't know how I could be over. I didn't bring the bowling balls. I don't know.
And then you're standing behind the guy and he unloads a kettlebell because they're trying to get down to the 50-pound limit. I saw one guy one time, he put on like 5 shirts, wearing 5 shirts, just so he wouldn't be over the limit on his baggage. Well, when we come into the moment full of ideas, full of preconceived notions, our bag's full. It's already at the weight limit. It's full of binge thinking, full of blind spots. There's an openness that sits beneath all that. So we're better off going in like an empty piece of luggage than one crammed full.
Oh, what do you mean? I'm not allowed to take this power tool on? I have to check this?
right? We come into the moment. Instead of preparing for the truly unimaginable power of living in this present moment, instead of listening to Saul Bellow, I should say Nobel laureate Saul Bellow, instead of listening to him when it comes to saying, hey, this other reality, this genuine reality is sending us hints, we go, nah, I don't need hints. I'm good. I don't know what Frank Lloyd Wright was talking about. I know. Where does that leave us? All this evidence swirling around us in the labyrinth, but we're full. We're occupied. There's no room at the inn. So what if, and I found this article, I think this is a good one to throw in here. I think this kind of supports in a certain way our whole concept of the labyrinth. You know, we talk about the brain, the body, and the buffer. Reports all over the place just last week. And I'll give you this one. There's so many of them, there's no sense even mentioning where we're pulling them because I pulled up like a half a dozen of them. But there were researchers. And this particular researcher is a professor of family and child sciences at Florida State University. And they're publishing in the Journal of Occupational and Environmental Medicine. When it comes to memory, quote, when it comes to memory and thinking skills, previous research has shown that a person's occupation may play an important role. Well, we kind of know that, right? You dig your gig, you're in. You don't? You're tapping out probably. Waiting for lunch. Can't wait to clock out. According to the article, one study published in 2014, for example, found that job burnout, that is, physical, emotional, mental, occupational exhaustion, can lead later in life to deficits in cognitive function. According to the lead researcher, Joseph, I'm gonna butcher this, but Griswoks, my apologies, and some of his colleagues, they're suggesting that working in a dirty and dull environment, one that doesn't inspire you, one that's filthy, one that's just blah, blah, also can impact long-term cognitive function. And that also brain health may suffer if you're tied to a desk in an unstimulating workplace. However, the team notes that there's been a debate over which factor played the biggest impact on your cognitive health. Is it dirty? Is it filthy? Is it just like make your skin crawl? Or is it dull? White walls, cubicle, Muzak playing over the speakers. Well, good news is in. The report says they both stink. Literally, and in some cases figuratively. It's both a dull and a dirty workspace that causes your mind to just, ugh. And they analyzed and interviewed 5,000 people, ages 32 to 84, who they consider to be part of midlife in the United States. Occupational information was gathered from the participants, including their employment status, place of work, job complexity, physical hazards in the workplace, and workplace conditions, such as how clean it was, how stimulating it was. And they found that if it's dull or dirty, it actually is a detriment. It actually causes a decline in your cognitive functions. Isn't that amazing? Well, think about it, because we are our labyrinth. If a dirty or dull workplace affects our brain, affects our mind, affects our sense of self, then we could say there truly is something to this brain, body, and borders. And that when researchers say that stimulating workplaces, clean, stimulating workplaces, are important to an employee's cognitive health, well, sure. We are our labyrinth. We are what we surround ourselves with. Man cave or a she cave, whatever we want to call it. Well, that extends outward, whether it's a physical structure or just the nomenclature of our minds, of how our brain, our body, and our borders are all the same. Are all the same. So we are the labyrinths we find ourselves in. So if the hints that we get in the moment are bubbling up through 6 inches of dust on the shelves, or just an opaqueness that just would drive you bonkers, now we know there's something to it. We've known all along. You are where you are. Your environment and your environment are one and the same. And I think that's what these reports go to show. All right, we'll be back. 11 seconds, I'm told.
You're listening to All Natural Being with Brian Brawdy. Because it's never too late to take your life back.
It's never too late to take your life back. That's what we focus on, All Natural Being. So I want to go ahead, and of course we're going to run out of time, so we'll push. Let me see which one. I think we can. Let's see if we can get this one in. I mentioned the quote of Plato earlier about power, and that his belief that the definition of being is simply power. If that's true, what's yours? We talk all the time about superhumans, all natural being, that you were created. You've heard me say that I think you're a skin bag full of buried treasure. You were created with a whole host of natural resources. So what are yours? As a part of today's 20-minute victory, what if we got out our journal, our logbook, our evidence blotter, and at the top, pick your favorite synonym for, it would have been good right there, right? Because like I say all the time, you can't spell Brian without the I in idiot. If I had said, pick your favorite cinnamon, that would have been funny. That would have been good. Pick your favorite synonym for idiot. Put that on the top of your list. Have some fun with it, right? And then put, contrary to that word, what are your powers? I talk a lot about prowess. What is your prowess? Because it's my belief that prowess and passion, pretty close. Flip sides of the same coin. Your power is your prowess and your passion. So what is yours? What do you dig? What do you love? What enthralls you? Because identifying that is the beginning of a truly euphoric life. And I suspect you have an inkling of it. You know already. Your heart gives you a little bit of a hint. You might be out somewhere, you see something, you hear something, you bump into something, you go, what could that be? Why did that grab me all of a sudden? Write it down in your journal. Write it down in your law book. We talked before about art, how art is such a great tool when it comes to having an appropriate relationship with your mind. As you tell your mind what to do, you're being creative. So a part of an appropriate relationship with our minds is to remember who works for who. So write it down. What is your prowess? What is your power? What is your passion? If you're doing it already, God love you. If you're not, what's the delay? What's the freaking holdup? As I say on the website, hey, your soul called. No more counterfeiting. Your soul called. It wants its life back. We know we have a shelf life, physically and philosophically. So what are we going to do with it? What are we going to do with that power? If Plato was right and being is about power, what are we going to do with that power? What are we going to do with that power? What is your prowess? Now, does it mean we have to sell everything we own, burn the ships, fight or die? Is there something you could do for the next 20 minutes? There's something you could do today. Beginning of the week, Monday's a cool day, regardless of what time you're listening to me. Monday's a cool day. What could you do? If it's early in the morning, you got the rest of the day. If it's in the evening, groovy. What could you do for the next 20 minutes? One of my favorite things to do in the evening, kind of review the events of the day, see in what circumstance did I have an appropriate relationship with my mind, and I to have an inappropriate relationship with my mind, see what lessons I learned. That's thinking. Not the binge thinking. Not thinking just for thinking's sake. But to kind of throw myself in front of the grand jury at the end of the day. Hey, could I have handled that situation better? Yes or no? Maybe, maybe not. I don't do it to marginalize myself. I do it to gain a greater understanding of what my mind was thinking about in that moment. Could I have played that situation better? Yes or no? And if you find out that, I didn't bring my best right then, go, okay, my bad. Guilty. Nothing to be shamed over. I'm not going to be ashamed of it. I'm guilty. I'll apologize, figure out the best, and move on. That's the benefit of identifying this later in the evening. Why go to bed with all those, because, I fell asleep with so much on my mind. Say goodbye to it. Save sleep for dreams and cool things. I'm pretty sure the subconscious mind is going to do the heavy lifting. So if it's going to do the heavy lifting, then give it some cool things to carry around. Was I wrong? Great. Did I learn from it? Yes. Fantastic. Everyone's fired up. Did I appreciate yet another portion of the shoreline, or I have no clue what I'm talking about? Yes, because that's the truth. That's the all-natural being. Till they figure out how to implant. Maybe they already have. If you watch Ancient Aliens, maybe they already have. Maybe, until they figure out how to implant a computer chip in our heads so that we know absolutely everything, inside and out, then we're being truthful with ourselves when we go, I don't know everything. There's a library full of crap I don't know. Not to say that we have to. We don't have to cram our cognition. I don't know if it's true or not, but I've loved this thought that they asked Einstein one time, what's your phone number? And he goes, I don't know. I never call myself. Why would I cram useless information into my mind? But when you identify your power, your passion, your prowess, you know if the information is useful or not. That's what I love about the myth of Prometheus. Not to go old Joseph Campbell on us, but the myth of Prometheus. He brings fire. He brings the ability to see in the dark, which has always fascinated me about Genesis in the beginning. Because when you break it down, when you look at the story of Genesis, not unlike Prometheus, bringing light to the darkness, the earth was null and void, darkness was upon the face. Then the breath, the ruah, the spirit of the divine blows across the surface. So technically, you and I are just agitated darkness. The breath blew across the vastness, eventually created land, and Big Bang, or Big Breath, evolution or Elohim, whatever you believe, we still come from this planet, from this dirt. So before the breath, it was just darkness. Before the light of Prometheus, before he steals the fire from Olympus, ticks off Zeus in the process, gets himself chained, right, to the mountaintop. That pesky little bird can come eat at his liver all night long. You and I are agitated darkness. There is a darkness. The light frees us from that darkness. Now, that is to say that we're a blend of both good and bad, up and down, left and right, light and darkness. But our all-natural being, as we talked about before, we can't run from the fact that we're agitated darkness. We can balance it out, the yin-yang that we've talked about before. We can balance it out. That's an appropriate relationship with our mind, but we're agitated darkness. So in the quest to figure out who you ultimately are, we got a lot of books in that library. I've had a lot of lessons. Makes us who we are. We can't run from the less than glorious times in our life. Can't always run to the light. We got to give ourselves a little bit of a break from time to time. At the end of the day, going, yeah, I messed that up. I'm an idiot. We're not beating ourselves up. We're just going in and getting our great back out. Because it's been my experience over these 30 years that when we have an identity crisis, it's because we refuse to see the good and the bad, all of it that makes us us. Are we perfect? No. Do we get to embrace our imperfection? Absolutely. And if as you hear that, you go, oh, Brian,
I don't have any imperfection.
okay. I got a couple of compliments last week when I told someone that you should run along. Enjoy the Today Show. Good Morning America, whatever you watch. We all have imperfections. That's the groovy part of life. We don't have to run from them. I saw this other thing. Let me see if I can get this real quick. When it comes to knowing yourself. Oh, here's a good one. Free will. No, not that one. Adjusted person. Okay, let's do this one. And I'll get through it real quick because I know we're coming to the top of the show. We're going to start a new segment called Around the Web because apparently I couldn't be any more creative than that. But we're going to start a new segment later in the week, I suspect, called Around the Web, where we have a couple different stories that I found early in the morning before the show. This one, in under 2 minutes, pretty fascinating. It says, psychologically adjusted, mentally healthy persons are less aware of how they are perceived by others. Now, stop taking a selfie for just a minute and put the iPhone down, whatever camera you're using. Said the most psychologically adjusted amongst us, big-time doctors doing this study. The most psychologically adjusted among us, we don't give a crap what you think about us. They call them meta-perceivers. And that just means what everyone is saying about you on the outside in. Do you have an understanding? You see yourself in some way when you take a selfie. And what was fascinating, a tangential part of the study, was that, well, let's say they took, I don't know what the number was, but they took 100 selfies. They took 100 pictures. 100 of them were selfies. 100 of them were people taking pictures of you. And 9 times out of 10, people looking at the picture chose the one that someone else took of you, not your selfies. So when you're busy putting up all these selfies, I love these people put selfies up on the internet, you can't even see their face. Apparently they want to highlight some aspect of their body or where they are or whatever, but it's so important to get the selfie up, the camera blocks their face in the mirror. Good golly. Well, the good news is psychologically adjusted persons couldn't give a crap about what you think about them. Just couldn't care, according to the study. People smarter than me. All right, I want to get out of here to be respectful of your time. We just got a couple minutes. All the rest of the week on All Natural Being, you should know, should you decide to tune in, or suggest to your friends that they tune in. We're going to focus all this week on what is the appropriate relationship. Who's driving the bus? Who works for who? That's what we're going to focus on this week, because when you remember, intuitively embrace this simple concept, that your mind works for you. You don't work for it. And your mind certainly doesn't work for the committee vote. Your all-natural being, your psychologically adjusted all-natural being, doesn't care what other people think about you. You're too busy paying attention to who you are. All right, we're going to get out of here. allnaturalbeing.com. Drop me an email. I'll send you one back. We will see you tomorrow. Have a fantastic day.
You've been listening to All Natural Being with Brian Brawdy.
Join us live every Monday through Friday, 7 to 8 a.m. Eastern.
Also, check us out around the clock at allnaturalbeing.com.
Until then, always remember to bring your own bold.
I love that line. Remember, bring your own bold. That's the appropriate relationship with your mind. Ignore. Let's you and I agree today to be psychologically adjusted and ignore all the pins. Looking for a pin cushion. See you tomorrow.
IPMNation.com.